Nashville.
Headquarters in New York. This is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite and Eric Severide in Washington, Bill McLaughlin in Kuwait, Bert Quint in the Sinai, John Lawrence in the Golan Heights, Jed Duval in Gulfport, Mississippi, and in Washington, Marvin Kalb, Dan Rather, Roger Mudd, and Connie Chung.
Good evening. Diplomatic moves to scale down or end the Middle East war were as hot and heavy today as the fighting itself, and it was particularly bad on the Sinai front. There, the Egyptians and Israelis slugged it out in a tank battle described by one Israeli military observer as the biggest armored clash in our history. In other related developments, U.S. officials say the American efforts to resupply Israel now are on a par with Russia's resupply of the Arabs. About 700 to 800 tons a day, including planes and tanks. About 20 U.S. flights a day. And with the United States putting the heat on Russia to cut back those arms shipments, Soviet Premier Kosygin is reported in Cairo to talk with President Sadat. No official confirmation on that, though. The U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Kenneth Keating, did meet today with Prime Minister Meir. Again, no word on what they discussed. In Kuwait, the Arab oil-producing countries put the squeeze on the West, announcing a phased cutback in oil exports. And Marvin Kalb reports on some behind-the-scenes moves in Washington.
Secretary Kissinger and Soviet Ambassador Dobrynin have been in very close touch in the last few days, and according to informed sources here, they have clarified and perhaps even narrowed their differences on a UN resolution calling for a ceasefire in place. Officials say there is not yet any agreement, but one is possible by week's end if either the Egyptians or the Israelis win a decisive military victory. Thus, there is a direct link between the Soviet-American diplomatic effort and the current fighting in the Sinai. Because even if Kissinger and Dobrynin reach their agreement, it still doesn't mean the Arabs and the Israelis will buy it. There is suspicion here among some officials that the administration is suggesting progress on the diplomatic front with Russia merely to keep its cherished détente intact. These officials noting that Soviet arms shipments to Syria and Egypt are continuing to increase, and that Soviet Premier Kosygin may be in Cairo right now, demonstrating even closer Soviet affinity to the Arab cause. Marvin Kalb, CBS News, the State Department.
This afternoon at the United Nations, Israeli Foreign Minister Abba Eban said his country's position on what to do about the war is ceasefire, negotiation, peace. He said Israel would be ready for, quote, most substantial compromises in any peace talks with the Arabs. Kissinger and President Nixon met at the White House with the foreign ministers of 4 Arab nations, Saudi Arabia, Algeria, Kuwait, and Morocco. And we have reports from Dan Rather and Connie Chung.
These foreign ministers represent the more moderate Arab states. They spoke to the president in private of pressures on their government to take more active roles against Israel, and they complained about the U.S. airlift of new supplies to Israelis. When the Oval Office meeting ended, Mr. Nixon and the Arab leaders stepped into the Rose Garden for a brief appearance. The Saudi Arabian spoke for the visitors. Neither he nor the president would answer any questions about oil.
The meeting and the discussions was fruitful, and we think the man who could solve the Vietnam War, the man who could have settled the peace all over the world, can easily play a good role in settling and having peace in our area, the Middle East.
Did you discuss oil, Mr. Minister?
That's all.
Wouldn't be fair to ask him questions because he speaks for 18. And I will simply say this, that a major goal and an urgent goal at this time, which we believe can and will and must be achieved, is a fair and just and peaceful settlement in the Mideast. And we all are dedicated to that goal.
During a brief encounter with this reporter after his meeting with the Arab diplomats, President Nixon said, quote, only when you have a military balance can you have a balanced settlement in the Middle East. The president's remarks appear to indicate that the U.S. intends to continue supplying Israel with weapons. His reference to military balance reflected long-standing U.S. policy that Israel will receive more U.S. aid whenever the Soviet Union supplies new or added weapons to the Arabs and upsets the delicate Mideast military balance.